Hello, good evening, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. This is Shyam here, taking up the Hindu news analysis for 2nd February 2026. Now, before I start the session, please do give the confirmation that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Those present, can you please give the confirmation? Am I audible and visible? Okay, let's start. So, in today's session, I've taken a total of 13 articles, all of them from the Delhi edition of Hindu newspaper. The newspaper today is filled with the articles associated with the announcements done in the union budget by the finance minister yesterday. Now, before I start the session, the discussion will be comprehensive and which will help you answer the questions in the prelims as well as mains examination. If you're liking the initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. And if you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. So before I start, here is a very important announcement. The Unacademy IAS has announced a 3-day free trial. The link for this is provided in the description below. All you need to do is click on the link. You'll have to provide the details. And once you register, you'll get access to whatever is there on the Unacademy platform. When I say whatever, be it recorded sessions, be it live sessions, the test series, the notes, etc. So this is a three free day trial which has been provided by Unacademy. Make the best use of it. The link is provided in the description below. Do not miss it. Now, in addition to this, in the last week when I took up one of the discussions of Hindu newspaper analysis, I asked whether you needed a complete coverage of economic survey chapter wise. I've received a lot of mails. I've also seen a lot of comments associated with this. I'll be taking the first class on the economic survey where I'll be starting with the chapter wise discussion. This discussion will happen on the Unacademy platform. I repeat, will happen on the Unacademy platform. All you need to do is there is a QR code visible to you on my right side. Scan the QR code. You'll be taken to the Unacademy webpage. There will be one button, enroll or notify me. Hit on the button notify me. On the 4th of February, that is day after tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'll be taking the first class that is on the Unacademy platform. Do not miss out. I'll be covering the chapters one by one related to the UPSC prelims as well as mains examination from the recently published economic survey. Now let's start. The first article, building on a tax gamble that did not pay off. Very interesting article. Why am I saying very interesting? Before I start discussing the articles, listen to me, all of you, carefully here. The government of India has announced the union budget. The union budget, the proposals will come into force from the 1st April 2026. These proposals are applicable for the next financial year. Now, before any of you come to a conclusion whether the budget is good or bad, keep certain points in the mind. One, these are proposals. As of now, these are proposals. Whether these will be implemented or not, you'll have to wait and see. And point number two, lot of these particular proposals, I'm pretty sure you've come across, will be given as a percentage of GDP. As a percentage of GDP. And why this is important? When you look at, let's say, fiscal deficit mentioned as a percentage of GDP, expenditure in the defense mentioned as a percentage of GDP, capital expenditure mentioned as a percentage of GDP, this number might change very soon. I'll repeat, this number might change very, very soon. Why am I saying this? The reason behind this is by the end of this particular month, the government of India is going to come out with a new GDP series. You're exactly right. The government is going to come out with a new GDP series. And once the new GDP series will be published, that is the methodology is going to change, the base year is going to change. With that, automatically the GDP estimates will also change. And once the GDP estimates will change, the percentage numbers which are provided regarding the budget, regarding expenditures, percentage wise I'm talking, these numbers will also change. So keep those particular points in the mind. Now let's start. Building on a gamble that did not pay off. What is the article discussing? Last year, the government of India in the budget and outside the budget made certain very important changes under taxation. Under taxation. And why taxes are so important for the government? If you look at the proposals that have been put forward yesterday by the government, out of the total incomes that the government of India is planning to collect in the next financial year, around 64%, I repeat, around 64% of the receipts are because of taxes. Around 64% of the receipts are because of taxes. And that itself will tell you why the taxes are so important, so relevant for the government finances. Now, last year, like I said, the government of India made certain changes under the context of taxation. For example, in the budget, I'm saying last year, not this year. Last year, in the budget, certain exemption was provided under income taxation. That is, if your income is up to 12 lakh rupees, along with the standard deduction, it went up to 12.75 lakh rupees. If your incomes are up to 12.75 lakh, that is taxable income, the government of India simply said complete tax exemption, right, will be provided to you. That is, you do not have to pay any income tax on this amount of taxable income. In addition to this, the government of India also made changes, that is specifically the GST Council, also made changes in terms of the GST rates. Earlier we had multiple slabs. We had 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. These particular slabs, instead of 4 slabs, these were reduced to 2. And with reduction in the number of slabs, obviously it was expected that there will be certain impact on the tax receipt collection. The government of India on one side stated that with reduction in the tax rate applicable on the people, understand the logic. If you reduce the tax that is applicable on the people, right, automatically that will increase the demand for goods and services. And when it will increase the demand for goods and services, the production increases. And when the production increases, it will contribute to higher GDP. And all of this, it's a virtuous cycle. All of this will also lead to higher tax revenue collection. This is argument in the context of reduction in the income tax rates. And what would be the argument in the context of GST? If the GST is rationalized, the actual term is rationalized. Don't use the term lowered. Say rationalized. With rationalization of GST, the market prices of many goods and services would become lower. And with the lower market prices, the demand for the goods and services would increase. And with the higher demand, production would increase, supply would increase, consumption would increase, and all of this again would contribute to overall tax revenue collection of the government. Is everybody able to understand? Very simple, right? Very simple basic idea. So these kind of taxation reforms were announced by the government. Ultimately, the government said all of these reforms are going to lead to the higher amount of tax revenue collection. So what has happened now? What has happened? What has been the actual outcome? The writers simply say, if you look at the revised estimates, and I hope all of you understand the meaning of the revised estimates. For the current financial year, actuals is not published. Is my statement clear to all of you? For the current financial year, actuals is not published. What is the meaning of actuals? The financial year is over. There will be no changes in any of the numbers. That is, taxes collection, changes will not happen. The expenditure incurred, changes will not happen. The subsidies that are spent by the government, a subsidy expenditure will not change. Disinvestment receipt will not change. So argument is very simple here. Right now, the revised estimates for the current financial year, that is 25 and 26, has been provided by the government in the budget. And what does the revised estimate show? Please have a look at the data. Do not memorize, but have a look at the data. Because of the revision that has been done by the government, you will be able to revise that. You will be able to understand that the tax revenue collection of the government of India has not increased. It has not increased. Rather, it has come down. Is it okay? The tax receipts, the revised estimates, by the way, it has not increased. In fact, it has been lowered now. And the writers simply say it could have been much, much higher. That is, the reduction could have been much, much higher if the government was not collecting more customs duties, more excise duties and more, right, in the form of other form of taxes, that is corporate taxes. The government of India collects corporate taxes, that is income taxes on the profits of the company. My dear, don't worry about anything else. Focus on the discussion. I'll address your doubt, not now. Focus on the discussion. Right, so listen to me carefully. With these kind of tax policies, the government expected the tax receipt to increase. But has the tax receipt increased? No, rather it has decreased. The decrease could have been higher if government of India had not collected higher corporate taxes, higher excise duties, etc. So the argument is very simple. The government very often makes these kind of policies where it expects that with the reduction in the tax rates, with provision of more benefits to the people, the companies, etc., by reducing the tax rates or by providing relief, certain outcomes will automatically happen. But the argument of the writers is no. Outcomes generally don't happen like this, because remember this, there are two sides in the market. One is the supply side and the other one is the demand side. One is the supply side and the other one is the demand side. The government of India has reduced income tax rate. It will only have an impact on the demand side in the market. People, if they're not confident, if people, that is the consumers, are not confident about the future source or future flow of the income, with more disposable income in the hand, they will not spend more money now. They will start storing more money because they are worried about what will happen to their incomes after 6 months, after 8 months, after 10 months, etc. And when you talk about the companies are supposed to invest more. The companies are supposed to create more capital, produce more goods and services and sell in the market. Basically, the argument is even they are worried about uncertainty. They are worried about volatility that could be created in the coming days. Sir, what kind of volatility are we talking about? Look at the MSME sector. MSME, we have more than 10 crore MSMEs, more than 10. Right? In fact, it is more than 11 to 12 crore MSMEs now. We have crores of MSMEs. A substantial chunk of the production, a substantial chunk of it, right, essentially will be exported. It is exported. Now, if we are not able to export because of, let's say, higher tariffs, because of the protectionism, etc., automatically the activity of the MSMEs would be hurt. If the MSMEs activity is hurt, their revenues would be hurt, their employment would be hurt, their repayment would be hurt. So the argument of the writers is this could have been a budget instead of what they have announced. It should have been a budget which will have a foresight. Which will have a foresight. Foresight of what? If our exports fall down because of uncertainty, volatility in the global market, what we should have done is made certain important announcements to ensure there is sufficient domestic demand. There is sufficient domestic demand. Everybody is okay? We should have made certain announcements in order to ensure that there is a sufficient domestic demand in the coming days in India. Because if I cannot export, at least I can sell it in the domestic market, ensure right there is continuous manufacturing activity, production activity that will take place. In addition to this, there is one more concern which has been raised under the head of capital expenditure. Capex. Under Capex, there is one concern which has been raised by the writers here. What is the concern? Very often the government focuses on fiscal policies where they will try to meet the targets of revenue deficit, right? Let's say fiscal deficit as well as the debt target. And when you are in the process of meeting these particular targets, a lot of times your revenue expenditures will overshoot. Revenue expenditures overshoot. That will lead to higher revenue deficit. Now you want to meet a fiscal deficit target. You will start adjusting the expenditures this side and that side. For example, the revenue expenditures in the form of food subsidies, fertilizer subsidies, they have overshot compared to what it was in the budget estimate. And the government, in order to meet the fiscal deficit target, automatically has to adjust the expenditure, especially under the capital head. And not to forget, When you talk about capital expenditure, all the capital expenditures are not one and the same. Understand the logic behind the statement. All the capital expenditure is not one and the same. What is the meaning of it? You spend, let's say, 100 crore rupees to set up a national highway, construct a national highway. You can use the same 100 crore rupees, right, let's say, for social welfare scheme. Under social welfare scheme, where you will develop, let's say, sanitation infrastructure, you will develop certain other types of infrastructure. But what is essentially the difference between both of these expenditure? What is essentially the difference between both of these expenditures? Both are used for development of assets only. The difference is the first one will contribute to economic growth, and that will happen immediately. Everybody is able to understand. The first one will have a higher multiplier effect, will contribute to economic growth that will happen in the immediate future. For example, if you want to construct a national highway or a bridge or an airport, etc., that is under the capital expenditure, economic capital. Here, you will be generating employment. You will be generating demand for cement. You will be generating demand for steel. As a result of this, the production of all of this also should increase. That will again generate employment. Higher salaries or wages are paid to household. That is expected to have a higher multiplier effect. But instead of spending in this, if you spend, let's say, money, 100 crore rupees to develop social welfare infrastructure, that is not going to have a higher impact like, right, higher multiplier. It will not have a higher multiplier impact which could have been achieved under the first type of capital expenditure. So these are some of the very important concerns which have been raised in the article regarding the budgeting exercise that has been conducted by the government in the last year as well as this year. Is everybody okay? Please do let me know. Everybody is able to understand the points I'm discussing. Before I go forward, I tell you one important point here. Whenever you read these kind of articles, have an open mind. Open mind in the sense, do not directly agree to all the points which are mentioned. Do not disagree to all the points which are mentioned. Because as a UPSC aspirant, you are supposed to know the pros as well as cons. On paper, whatever has been cited as a criticism of the budgeting exercise will feel correct to you. Correct. It will feel correct. Absolutely correct. But is it the only way? Is it the only way to have a good budget? Not necessarily. For example, Government of India would have spent more money, thereby increasing the fiscal deficit yesterday. Right? They would have achieved a higher fiscal deficit by spending more money. But look at the situation in India right now. The problem is, if Government of India spends more money, fiscal deficit increases, foreign investors will never be happy with that. And already what is the concern? Foreign investments are flowing out of India. Net FDI is negative. The foreign portfolio investors, right, have been withdrawing money from the Indian market. So all of these are important concerns the Government of India has to keep in mind, all of these issues. And not to forget, very recently our sovereign credit rating has upgraded. It has been upgraded. Now if you basically announce a budget which is populist in nature, spend more money, right, achieve the social welfare objective, provide income tax breaks again this year, but that will essentially have a problem in terms of increasing fiscal deficit. With higher fiscal deficit, already the state's fiscal deficit is higher. The credit rating agencies might look at it and maybe downgrade India. So I hope you understand there are always two sides to the coin. You understand both the sides of the coin. Okay, let's go forward. Now, before I go forward, somebody will ask, then what should be the way forward? What if somebody will ask me, what should I say? Budget is an important exercise in a financial year. No doubt. I'll repeat the statement. Budget is an important exercise in a financial year. No doubt. That doesn't mean that is the only way the government can contribute or promote economic growth and recovery and development. Is it okay? That is not the only way. I'll give you an example. During pandemic, the Government of India announced multiple set of measures. Do you think all of them were announced only during the budget? Not necessary. Right? Taxation, yes, you require a bill introduction, etc. But over a period of time, the government can keep on announcing more and more support measures as and when the situation changes, as and when there is a demand for these kind of reforms in the market. Okay, let's go forward. Next one, fiscal rules for the growth spending. Fiscal rules for the growth spending. What are the important points? Listen carefully now. Until now, the government of India used to focus on one parameter as a fiscal anchor. I repeat, until now, the government of India used to focus on one indicator as a fiscal anchor, and that was fiscal deficit. That was fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit was the main anchor focused by the government of India. Everything was surrounding fiscal deficit. Everything was to achieve fiscal deficit. But starting next financial year, the government will change it. The government has announced a change. What is a change? Fiscal deficit will not be the main anchor now. It will be debt to GDP ratio. Debt to GDP ratio. The debt to GDP ratio will be the main fiscal anchor going forward. Meaning what? Whatever policies are implemented by the government now, in order, right, in the form of, let's say, subsidy rationalization, expenditure policies, reduction in the fiscal deficit, whatever policies are implemented, all of them will be moving towards achieving the target of debt to GDP ratio. It will be towards achieving the debt to GDP ratio. Please remember this can be a straightforward question in the prelims examination. Can be a straightforward question. Now, what is a target that has been decided by the government of India? The target that has been decided by the government of India, which they want to achieve by the end of financial year 31, is 50% of GDP. It is 50% of GDP. 50% of GDP. Right now, it is around 55%. We want to further drag it down, further reduce it, and bring it to 50% of GDP by the end of financial year 31. Now, why is this important? Why this change in the policy is important? Listen to me carefully. In the last decade, the government of India set up a committee, FRBM Review Committee. FRBM Review Committee. Right? It is also referred to as NK Singh Committee. It is also referred to as NK Singh Committee. Right? NK Singh was the chairperson. And by the way, NK Singh is also the chairperson of the 15th Finance Commission. 15th Finance Commission. I'm talking about this because very recently 16th Finance Commission report has been made public by the government of India. And by the way, please do let me know who was the chairperson of 16th Finance Commission? Who is the chairperson of the 16th Finance Commission? Aman Singh says Arvind Panigaria. Others? Kanishka Goyal, Arvind Panigaria. What about others? Sir, wait, sir, I'm checking in the Google. I've asked Gemini. Once Gemini will reply, I'll reply to you. Arvind Panigaria, Mr. Arvind Panigaria, right? 16th Finance Commission. Okay, come back to the point here. FRBM Review Committee, that was the committee which recommended that rather than focusing on the fiscal deficit, yes, we should reduce fiscal deficit, no doubt. Reduce fiscal deficit. Should we reduce primary deficit? Yes. Should we reduce revenue deficit? Yes. Yes, we should reduce all these deficits. But rather than focusing on the fiscal deficit, the committee recommended use the debt to GDP ratio. Use the debt to GDP ratio. But the committee recommended using a target of 40% of GDP. It recommended using 40% of GDP as the target. 40% of GDP for the central government, 20% of GDP for the state governments. This was the recommendation of the FRBM Review Committee. In fact, they had given a glide path as well. That is from 1 year to the next year, by how much percentage you were supposed to reduce the debt, the fiscal deficit, as well as revenue deficit. According to that, by 2023, mind you, by 2023, we were supposed to reduce the debt to GDP of the central government to 38.7% of GDP. The revenue deficit was supposed to be dragged down to 0.8% of GDP. And the fiscal deficit was supposed to be dragged down to 2.5% of GDP. But because there were external factors as well as internal factors, pandemic, slowdown, recession, etc., the government of India has not been able to meet the target. But now the government of India simply says, yes, we are going to use the debt to GDP as the fiscal anchor. But rather than taking 40% as the target, which was recommended by the FRBM committee, the government has chosen 50% of GDP as a target by financial year 31. So what is the flexibility that the government will get here? What is the flexibility? The government simply argues that instead of 40%, because the target is 50%, now I will have more legroom to borrow. Right? Borrow in the sense, if it was 40%, my borrowings should have been much lower. All of you are able to understand? If it was 40% target, my borrowing should be much more controlled. But because the target is 50%, it will provide flexibility to me. Rather than simply running behind the fiscal deficit. Every year the target of fiscal deficit, it's a problem. Problem in the sense, let's say there is suddenly a recession this year. Now, because there is a recession, the government expenditure increases. Receipts will be lesser. But you have to meet the fiscal deficit target. Or else you will have to basically announce an escape clause wherein flexibility will be provided in the fiscal deficit target. So rather than keeping fiscal deficit as the main fiscal anchor, government has shifted to the debt to GDP ratio as the main fiscal anchor. But having said so, it should not provide basically the government a freedom now to cut expenditures in order to control the debt. What do I mean by that? In the recently announced budget, there have been a lot of concerns raised regarding some of the expenditures. Some of the expenditures in social welfare have been cut. Some of the expenditures associated with infrastructure, some type of infrastructure have been cut. So the argument is, it should not provide a freedom for the government essentially to meet the target, keep on cutting expenditure, especially the concern is regarding agriculture expenditure. Agriculture expenditure, right? So there has been a practice, or there has been certain instance where the government has cut down the expenditure associated with agriculture, right? So these are some of the concerns which have been raised in the context of this article, which talks about the debt to GDP ratio. Everybody is okay with the second article? Please do let me know. Everybody is okay with the second article? I'll take up the doubts at the end of the session, not in the middle of the session. Okay, let's go forward. States devolution at 41%, South's share up. Right, what is the article talking about? Yesterday during the budget presentation, the finance minister, even before the presentation of the budget, the finance minister laid on the floor the committee recommendation or 16th Finance Commission recommendations. Because under Article 281, the finance minister is supposed to do that. Now, what is the most important point that was mentioned in the budget speech? The finance minister simply stated, the 16th Finance Commission, whose recommendations will be applicable for 5 years, that is from 2026 to 2031. This particular commission report has been submitted. Right? The report has been submitted to the government. The government has accepted some of the recommendation. The most important recommendation, which most of you should be aware of, is the vertical devolution formula. Vertical devolution formula. VDF. Vertical devolution formula. What is this idea of a vertical devolution formula? Take the total of divisible pool, that is a central divisible pool. From the divisible pool, I'll write the short form here, central divisible pool, CDP. From the central divisible pool, now you need to find out how much of the central divisible pool will go to states and how much will be retained by the central government. So the 16th Finance Commission has basically recommended the same vertical devolution that was recommended by the 15th FC. Whatever was recommended by the 15th FC, same recommendation has been provided in the context of vertical devolution formula. That is 41%. 41%. But in addition to vertical devolution formula, the Finance Commission has given recommendation regarding horizontal devolution formula. It has given recommendations regarding the grants, that is a grant in aid. It has even given the recommendation to amend the constitution under one of the article because it is raising concerns regarding recommendations to be given by the Central Finance Commission. It has given recommendations regarding how the state governments are borrowing under off-budget liabilities. It has given recommendations regarding horizontal devolution formula. Please be very careful with horizontal devolution formula. The horizontal devolution formula now has been tweaked, has been changed by the 16th Finance Commission. Now regarding this, I have taken the top 10 recommendations of the Finance Commission. Recommendations of the Finance Commission. I have made a separate video. Please do watch it. Please do watch it. The top 10 recommendations of the 16th Finance Commission. Sir, where is the video available? In the same Unacademy IAS English YouTube channel under the video section. Under the video section, this particular video is already uploaded. Please do watch it. It's, I think, half an hour video. Done? Okay, so these are some of the points associated with Finance Commission. Next, what are the announcements of the government in the context of customs duties? Customs duties. We expected a lot of reforms under the customs duties, but yes, to a certain extent, reforms have been announced under customs duties. Why the reforms were expected in the first place? Listen to me carefully. Last year, multiple reforms were announced by the government under GST, under income taxation, etc. But one area which was flagged by the experts was basically importing something into India. Associated with importing something into India. What is the point I'm trying to convey here? You import something, the tax rate on that is very high. They use a term for this, inverted duty structure. Please do let me know in the chat section. All of you have heard of this. Inverted duty structure. That is, you import a raw material or an input. You use this to manufacture a final good in India. Now, when you import a raw material or an input, tax rate is higher compared to when you import the finished good itself. Very simple. Tax on the input is higher compared to tax on the final good. That is called as inverted duty structure. And what is the problem with that? If I find out that if I import a raw material, I'll pay higher tax. Rather than importing a raw material, I'll simply import a final good, finished product. Why? The tax rate on this is comparatively lesser. So there is a problem associated with inverted duty. There is also a problem associated with documentation. Lot of documentation work is involved in terms of importing a product into India. We have to run from one office to another office to provide documentation to the customs officials. There is a lot of involvement of the customs official while clearing these particular products for imports, etc. And all of these will increase the cost of production. All of these will increase the cost of production. And higher cost of production will lead to higher market prices. This will reduce the export competitiveness. This will reduce the export competitiveness. So these were some of the issues that were flagged in the context of the customs procedures or customs duties in India. So what has the government of India done in the budget? What have been the announcement? The government of India has announced simplification associated with the customs duties. For some of the imports, for example, lot of these medicines, etc., these kind of imports, customs duties have been exempted. For getting the approvals from the customs official, the government simply says the procedure will be very much simplified now. It will be simplified, basically promoting more and more ease of doing business. But in addition to this, there is also one more scheme that has been mentioned by the government. Advanced authorization scheme. This is associated with exports, not specifically custom duty, exports, more to do with export. What is this idea for advanced authorization scheme? Under advanced authorization scheme, let's assume I'm importing something. I'll have to pay duties on it. Simple, I'll have to pay duties. The government under advanced authorization scheme, I'll start using AAS. The government under AAS simply says, I will waive off the customs. I will not collect the duties from you. But you will have to export a certain amount of the goods from India's market to external market. Everybody is able to understand the logic here. I'll repeat it again. I will import something. I will have to pay duties to the government. Government says, I will waive off the duty. I will not collect the duty from you, provided you will export a certain value of the goods from India's market to external market. You will have to meet the target. Certain targets are given. You are supposed to meet the target. Until now, you were given 6 months to achieve the target. Simple. Until now, you were given 6 months to achieve the target. Now, this has been increased to 12 months. This has been increased to 12 months. This is Advanced Authorization Scheme. Next one, Customs Duty Rationalization, already covered. Another important initiative, the Special Economic Zones. Special Economic Zones. Right now, if you are manufacturing in an SEZ, listen to me carefully now. Imagine this is Special Economic Zone. If you are manufacturing something in the SEZ, it is for export purposes. It is for export purposes. And the government basically, that's a reason. When you import something, you are in SEZ manufacturing something. When you import something to manufacture the product, government waives off customs duty. It will not collect any customs duty from you. Logic is, you are importing this, let's say raw material, so that a good is manufactured and it is exported. So government says, I will waive off. But there is a concern regarding this. Right now, SEZs, because of the pandemic, after that, the protectionist policies of US and other countries, etc., there is a concern that SEZs are not able to export more to the global market. What if you want to sell it in the domestic market? Listen to me carefully. Whenever you want to sell it in the domestic market is called as domestic tariff area. Is it okay? The domestic market is referred to as domestic tariff area, DTA. Right? So essentially the concept is, when you are selling in the domestic market, you will have to pay duties. You will have to pay certain duties, because now the government will treat this, that is basically the product that you are selling in the domestic tariff area from the SEZ, government will treat this product as an import and you will have to pay duties on it. So if you want to export it, you are not able to do that. If you want to sell it in the domestic market, right, you are not able to do that because there is a customs duty applicable on your product. What has the government of India announced in the budget? Government has simply stated, we will announce, what is the rate? Not yet announced. We will announce a concessional duty regime. I'll repeat the statement. The government has stated they will announce a concessional duty regime. That is, rather than asking you to pay higher duties when you sell it in the DTA, domestic tariff area, now the duty would be lowered. Once the duty is lowered, you will be able to sell it in the domestic market. Everybody is okay with this announcement? Do let me know. Everybody is okay? Okay, let's go forward now. New Income Tax Act to take effect from 1st April. New Income Tax Act. This is important. This is very, very important for you. New Income Tax Act to take effect from 1st April. What is the importance? In the last budget, the government of India had announced introduction of income tax bill. The bill was introduced. What was the logic of introducing the new income tax bill? Argument is very simple. Right now we have Income Tax Act of 1961. Simple. Right now we have Income Tax Act of 1961. One, this is a very, very old piece of legislation. Very, very old piece of legislation. First one. Second one, over a period of time, multiple amendments have been introduced by the government. Multiple changes have been introduced by the government, which essentially means this particular piece of legislation has provisions which are not relevant to the current situation, which do not reflect the current situation of market in India. That is the second reason. Third reason is, The piece of legislation, that is IT Act of 1961, was very bulky, very, very bulky. And second, the language which was used to write the provision, the language was very, very technical in nature, which actually led to one difficulties in filing of the income tax returns. For example, if an individual wants to file the income tax returns, a lot of times you don't understand what is the provision, what is the actual, right, serial number of the provision, which section is it. Even if you know, you will not be able to decipher the language that is given in the provision. Right? That is the precise reason lot of times when people want to file the income tax returns, they will not take the risk. They will simply hire a chartered accountant, ask the chartered accountant to file, and they'll pay charges for the chartered accountant. But the argument is, it should not be this difficult to file income taxes. It should not be this difficult. And whenever the provisions are so lengthy, so complicated, etc., it will always lead to difference in the interpretation. Difference in the interpretation. The income tax officials will interpret the provision in one way. When you read, you will interpret the provision in another way. According to you, this interpretation is correct. You will file the income taxes according to your interpretation. But the tax official will not accept it. They will send a tax notice to you. Now, you will go to court. This has actually led to very high number of cases, that is litigation burden. So the government of India looked at all of this, proposed a replacement of the Income Tax Act of 1961. The bill was introduced. Once it was withdrawn, again reintroduced with certain changes, etc. It was passed. The government has announced that come 1st April 2026, the new Income Tax Act provision will be in place. Is it okay? From the 1st April 2026, the new Income Tax Act will be put in place. This is important for you, whether you're writing this year, next year, doesn't matter. It is important for you. Next one, certain announcements in the capital market. Right? Certain announcements in the capital market. What were the important announcements? One, securities transaction tax. This has rattled the market. Yesterday, the market essentially closed, right, at a lower level. And again, please understand, before I evaluate this, please understand. These kind of announcements, obviously, yes, the financial market will not accept it. They will oppose it. They will react to it. And looking at the stock market, please do not come to a conclusion whether this is good or bad. Right? Don't come to a conclusion, because I'm pretty sure most of you have seen a lot of debate on this. Those people who have invested a lot of money, the hedge fund managers, the mutual fund managers, they are basically, right, let's say, irritated by this. They are voicing opinions against this. They are basically saying this will push the foreign investors from India, etc., etc. That is one side of the coin. What is their argument? Their argument is simple. Security transaction tax is a direct tax. Listen to me carefully now. STT, I'll start using the short form. Security transaction tax is a direct tax. What has the government of India done now? In the derivative market, futures and options are derivatives, on some of the transaction, it has announced increase in the security transaction tax, which effectively translates into the investors in these markets paying more amount of taxes. Simple. Investors in these instruments paying more amount of taxes. And because a lot of the investors have invested huge sums of money, will invest huge sums of money in the future, obviously they will not like when a higher tax is imposed on the transaction. That is precisely the reason why the stock market tumbled yesterday. But does it mean there is fundamentally something wrong with the Indian economy? No. Market is reacting to what has been the announcement. Everybody is okay? So securities transaction tax. Next one, municipal bonds have been incentivized. The municipal bonds have been incentivized. Right? What is the meaning of municipal bonds being incentivized? Right now, there is a huge demand for investment purposes for the municipalities. For example, the government of India a decade ago implemented a smart city initiative where a lot of the municipalities have been identified, 100 cities. these cities were to invest a lot of money in maintaining existing infrastructure, in developing new infrastructure, etc. By the way, everybody is able to follow the discussion? Please do let me know. A lot of you have stopped replying to or putting any message in the chat section. Are you able to follow the discussion? Great. Thanks a lot. Let me continue. Right. So please keep on posting something in the chat section that is yes sir, it is clear, etc. So that I realize that you people are not sleeping in the session. You are awake in the session. Okay. So municipal bonds. What is the objective of the government of India? The government of India says already there is one initiative. There is an initiative by the name of Amrut initiative. Under Amrit initiative, the small bond issuances are incentivized. Small bond issuances. But the government wants municipalities to issue large value. That is, they want the municipalities to issue bonds worth more than 1,000 crore rupees in one shot. They want them to issue this. And these are municipal bonds. And with that, essentially, the municipalities will be able to raise money and take care of their finances. But at the same point of time, the government is saying, I will give you incentives. What kind of incentive? 100 crore rupee incentive. You issue municipal bonds worth more than 1,000 crore rupees. I will give you incentive. This is in addition to the incentive which is already there under Amrut, but Amrut will focus on small issuance. This new announcement will focus on bigger issuance of municipal bonds. Everybody is okay with the second one. Third one, person resident outside India. PRIO. Person resident outside India. The government has stated they will be introducing a new scheme. Person resident outside India. Individuals who are non-Indian resident. Right? Individuals who are residing outside India. A lot of times you will use the term NRIs. So if you're a person residing outside India, you want to invest in India, right now there is a limitation. Restriction is there. Government of India has announced we are going to relax these. We are going to increase the limit according to the proposal which has been put forward under PROI initiative. So far the name has not been given by the government. Under this particular initiative, the PROIs will be allowed to invest more amount of money in equity market in India. Right? How much? The government simply has announced under this 5% to 10% overall investment limit will be increased, and individual PROIs, the limit will be increased from 10% to 24%. Now you'll have to wait and see how this will be implemented, how much flows we are expecting in the market because of this, etc. Done. So these are associated with the capital market. Next, banking sector and power sector. What are the announcements by the government? Simple announcements. One, the government of India has announced that they are going to review the banking structure in India. They are going to review the banking structure in India. How? They are going to set up a committee. A high-level committee would be set up, and this committee will review the banking structure in India and it will give recommendation to the government. Now, if you ask me, sir, what do you mean by banking structure? There have been multiple instances where experts keep on arguing that there is a need to privatize some of the banks in India. There is a need to privatize because privatization generally is associated with more utilization of resources. And as such, in India, the number of banks which are held under the government of India, the public sector banks, the numbers earlier were very, very high. There was a point of time where around 20 public sector banks were there in India. That particular number has been reduced now. Right now, we have around 12 public sector banks. According to the public sector policy of 2021, the government of India under that has identified the banking sector as part of the strategic. And if you're identified as a part of the strategic sector, you will be allowed to have maximum up to 4 enterprises. The government will be allowed to have maximum 4 enterprises in that particular sector. And that's a reason there is a discussion now. Can we have a review of the banking structure? What will be the terms of reference? What will be the recommendation that will come later in the current affairs? This is one. Second announcement is associated with merger of two entities, the Power Finance Corporation and the Rural Electrification Corporation. The Power Finance Corporation earlier back in the year 2019 purchased the Rural Electrification Corporation from Government of India. Around 60% of the stake was sold by Government of India to Power Finance Corporation, which essentially means there is government now. Government owns Power Finance Corporation and the Power Finance Corporation owns REC, Rural Electrification Corporation. This is a structure. But why is the Government of India announcing a revamp or restructuring of both of them? These two entities play a very important role in promotion of long-term power projects, long-term power infrastructure projects. And this is not the first time that this is being considered by the government. Back in the year 2020 itself, there was one proposal. And mind you, these two are essentially NBFCs. The public sector NBFCs. I repeat, these two are essentially the public sector NBFCs. So Government of India has not only announced a reform in the banking sector, it has also announced a reform in the NBFC segment as well. Right? Because a lot of you, when I'm discussing this article, will be thinking of this. On one side, the highlight or the headline is on banks. Second, right, PFC and REC. What is the connection? One is a bank and the other one is NBFC, public sector NBFC. So Government of India has announced we want to restructure REC, Rural Electrification Corporation and Power Finance Corporation. Both of them are public sector NBFCs. Can I move on to the next article now? Those present, awake, please do let me know. Can I move on to the next article? If you don't reply, I'll stop the discussion. I know a lot of you, when you hear this, you'll say, yes, sir, stop the discussion. Fed up with the budget. Since last 36 hours, in the last 36 hours, so much of budget. I'm fed up. I will not reply. You shut down the session. Okay, great. Let's go forward. Tax holiday for data centers. Tax holiday for data centers. Basic idea is this. The Government of India wants multinational enterprises which will provide cloud computing services. For example, Amazon provides cloud computing. Microsoft provides cloud computing. Google provides cloud computing services. They want these companies to come into India, set up capability centers. That is, these centers should be set up in India. That is essentially attracting investments, FDI into India. So argument is the government now has announced a tax holiday. They've announced a tax holiday. Right? To attract these investments, the government has announced a tax holiday. Right? What is basically the tax holiday? If you meet conditions, you do not have to pay taxes. And this particular tax holiday has been announced for the next 20 years, that is till 2047. It has been provided, the tax holidays have been provided. Essentially, you work in India, there are certain conditions, you meet the conditions, and you do not have to pay taxes to the Government of India. Generate revenue, don't pay taxes. And before you basically say, but sir, this will lead to loss of tax receipts. Yes. There are a lot of schemes, lot of initiatives of Government of India where government will end up losing tax receipts. And that is what we count under the concept of tax expenditure. Right? For example, SEZ policy, lot of tax receipts have been sacrificed there. Startup India policy, lot of tax receipts have been lost there or sacrificed there. So this is one more initiative. But the condition here is that these multinational enterprises which will provide the cloud computing services, they will have to use Indian resellers. I repeat, they will have to use Indian resellers. Right? What do you mean by Indian resellers? This company, let's understand with a simple example. Amazon wants to provide cloud computing services to users in India. Amazon will not directly sell it to the users. They will use an Indian reseller such as Tata company. such as Reliance, such as Wipro. They will use these particular companies and sell the cloud computing services to Indian users. They will have to use Indian users. Indian suppliers or resellers. That is a condition under this initiative of the government. So this is one more important announcement. Next one, in the context of MSME and textiles. MSME and textiles. What are the important announcements? In the context of MSMEs, the government basically says they will be introducing an equity support fund. An equity support fund. What is the basic idea of an equity support fund? The government will allocate funds to a financial institution. Now this financial institution will invest in the MSMEs. Simple idea. Government in a fund, that is institution. Institution will invest in the equity, that is ownership of, let's say these particular MSMEs, which are reliable, which have potential, etc. So equity support fund has been announced. There is also announcement in the context of the TREADS platform. What is the announcement? The government now simply says the central public sector enterprises. The central public sector enterprises, whenever they purchase from the MSMEs, these purchases will have to go through TREADS platform. Go through means what? Whenever you purchase, you will issue a receivables. That is a bill. Receivables. Credit receivable is issued. This receivable has to be issued under the TREADS platform. And what is the use of issuing it through the TREADS platform? In the TREADS platform, if the MSME wants to sell the receivables, that is they want to sell the, let's say the slip or the credit slip to somebody else, they can sell it and get the money. So all the CPSE purchases from the MSMEs now will have to go through the TREADS platform. This is essentially going to provide liquidity to the MSME sector. In the context of the textiles and khadi, for textile promotion, the government of India has announced a Samarth initiative, Samarth 2.0, that is essentially focused on ensuring skilled labor is available. More projects will be implemented. Textile parks have been announced by the government. In the context of the khadi, the government of India has announced Mahatma Gandhi, let's say Swarojgar here, Mahatma Gandhi initiative here. The objective is essentially to promote, somebody will ask me, sir, what is the name of this? Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative. The objective is very simple. There is a huge potential market for khadi in the domestic market as well as external market. Huge potential is there. So we need to promote availability of skilling. We need to ensure sufficient production will happen. We need to ensure exports will take place. For that, the government of India has announced, the Swaraj Yojana, Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj Yojana. In fact, the finance minister in the speech stated it will be covered under the initiative of One District, One Product, ODOP initiative. Okay, next one, containers and inland waterways. What is the importance of this? Very often in the newspaper you will come across increase in the cost of exports. Increase in the cost associated with the exports. Meaning what? In recent times, if a particular container passed through, let's say Red Sea, there were concerns about, let's say attack by Houthis. And as a result of this, many of these particular containers started taking a longer route. Many of these particular shippers or shipping companies which will provide insurance started imposing a very high amount of insurance. That is one instance. Second instance is China and USA. The tariff was announced, and once the tariff was announced, a lot of these particular containers started moving the products from China's market to USA market because they wanted to reach the USA market before the tariffs were implemented. And when all of this happens, you realize, yes, there is a need to promote container production in India. There is a need to promote merchant shipping vessels in India. Again, I'm focused more on the commercial aspect. Ships are important in the defense sector. I'm talking about the commercial aspect of the shipping. So earlier, there has been a lot of discussion. In fact, I remember in 2024, back in 2024, Niti Aayog had recommended a PLI for container manufacturing in India. It had recommended a PLI for container manufacturing in India. And it had raised certain pertinent issues. Pertinent issue in the sense, when the container is manufactured in China and similar container is manufactured in India, the cost of the container manufactured in India is much, much higher compared to the one which is manufactured in China. So we need to promote incentivization of the container manufacturing, although that was not implemented by the government. But remember, there is certain, right, let's say current affairs connection to all of this. So Government of India now has announced an initiative to basically promote container manufacturing in India, container making in India. But not just this, the government also has announced initiative for promotion of inland waterways. What is the importance of this? Most of the goods which is transported in India, cargo, most of the cargo that is transported in India is done through roadways. It is done through roadways. And the problem with using the roadways as a mode of transportation is the fact that it is very costly. It consumes a lot of fuel, right? It takes a lot of time, and not to forget, it contributes to very high amount of emissions. It contributes to very high amount of emissions. And that is where China will come into picture. Again, the only reason why I keep on quoting China, it is basically a global leader in all of it. Not because I'm fond of China. It is a global leader. For example, in case of China, what is the total length of navigable waters that has been developed by the government there? More than 1 lakh kilometers. I repeat, more than 1 lakh kilometers. That is the total length of navigable waters. In India, it is over 20,000 kilometers, which means they can basically leverage waterways as a mode of a transportation in a much better way compared to India. In India, the Government of India, initially there were only 5 waterways. The Government of India brought in a law, Waterways Act. Under the Inland Waterways or National Waterways Act, we identified 111 waterways and we simply said all of them will be national waterways. Right? Many of them have become operational. Right? We are using these waterways as a mode of a transportation. But listen to me carefully. Because we have not developed all the waterways right now, participants in the waterways, that is the shipping companies, etc., are very limited right now. If you look at the cost of transportation through shipping, it is higher. That is using waterways. Everybody is able to understand? Why is the Government of India incentivizing? Because somebody will say, but sir, on one side, you said waterways is cheaper. But why should the government provide incentives then? Because if it is cheaper, the company should automatically move to waterways. Right now, it is costlier. Because we do not have all the infrastructure, suppliers are lesser, companies are lesser, the cost of transportation is higher. So Government of India says, in that case, I will give you incentives. I will give you incentive. You shift from road for transporting the cargo to waterways. That is basically the incentivization scheme announced by the government. In addition to this, 20 new waterways will be operationalized by the government. 20 new waterways will be operationalized by the government, and one waterway has been mentioned by the government, NW5, National Waterways 5. Please have a look at it. What are the areas it will connect? Can be a potential question in the prelims examination. Okay, let's go forward. Those who are wondering, sir, how many more articles? Couple of more articles. Rare Earth Corridor. Right, Rare Earth Corridor. The Government of India last year announced an initiative, REPM, the Rare Earth Permanent Magnets. The Rare Earth Permanent Magnets. So under this initiative, the objective was to basically develop the complete supply chain ecosystem of permanent magnets. And when I say complete supply chain, there are multiple, right, let's say production activities or production phases. The government doesn't want to promote only one of the activity in India. They want to, right, basically promote the complete set of activities in India. What is the logic behind it? Logic is, when you talk about the magnets, that is the permanent magnets, in the recent times itself, because there were certain constraints imposed by the Chinese authorities, the supply of permanent magnets to India as well as other countries around the world was disrupted. Right? Many companies were hurt because of it. Later, the Chinese authorities used the supply of permanent magnets as a bargaining chip to get better agreements, right? Especially when they negotiated with USA and when they spoke about it with India. It was weaponized by the Chinese authorities. So the government of India now simply says, let's focus on Atmanirbharta. Let's focus on self-reliance. And that is where the earlier initiative will be important for you. Now, in addition to this, Government of India now in the budget has announced that it will be developing by supporting certain mineral-rich states such as Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Right? In these particular states, the government will provide support to develop the rare earth corridors. Essentially, support for production, mining, technologies, etc. Right? So this is one more very important article. But in addition to this, all the other important points we have already discussed in one or the other sessions. For example, China's dominance. Right? How much of the production is accounted by China? How much exports is accounted by China? How much is the import done by from China into India? Same points, basic repetition. Let's go forward. Right, I think it is the last one. Oh, two more articles. Then we will be done. Semiconductor Mission 2.0 unveiled. There are two initiatives that have been announced by the government yesterday. One is ECMS. ECMS, that is Electronic Components Manufacturing Scheme. Electronic Components Manufacturing Scheme. This particular ECMS, right, was notified hardly 1 year ago. That is in the month of April 2025. What is the objective under ECMS? Essentially, we have identified different types of activities that need to be promoted, which will help in production of various electronic components. Various electronic components. We have identified them. We need to promote the production of them in the domestic market. That is essentially the initiative of ECMS. It was launched in April 2025. The allocation last year announcement was 22,800 crores. Now the allocation has been increased to 40,000 crores. The allocation has been increased to 40,000 crores. Right, so this is one announcement. Second announcement is Indian Semiconductor Mission, ISM. Indian Semiconductor Mission. Right, what is the importance of this? The Indian Semiconductor Mission was announced by the government back in the year 2021. It was announced back in the year 2021. And this has been implemented by the Ministry of Electronics, MeitY, right? Ministry of Electronics. Now, under this, there are multiple components. For example, there is one component to promote, right? Let's say the Design Linked Incentive, DLI. There is one more component under ISM, that is display manufacturing, promotion of display manufacturing. There is also one more initiative, promotion of semiconductor fabs, right, etc. So there are multiple components. When it was launched back in the year 2021, the allocation was 76,000 crore rupees. Now the government of India says we are going to launch the second iteration. The second iteration, that is Indian Semiconductor Mission 2.0. Now the details of it will be revealed by the government going forward. Done? Now finally, the last article, the final article. You can have a relief. You can basically heave a sigh of relief. Last article, the capital expenditure. The capital expenditure or Capex. The government of India in the budget that was announced yesterday has increased the capital expenditure. The new amount that has been allocated for the next financial year is 12.2 lakh crore rupees. 12.2 lakh crore rupees. That's a very, very high amount of allocation for capital expenditure, which is a very good indicator for the market, which will gain confidence that government is eyeing investment in infrastructure. Okay, and that will help attract a lot of investment from the private sector as well. And this is nothing new, by the way. Since pandemic, the government of India has been increasing the amount under capital expenditure. It has been increasing the amount for capital expenditure. In addition to providing certain assistance to the states, there is an initiative, SASKI, right? That is basically under which 50-year interest-free loans are provided by the central government to the state government. So allocation under that has been increased. The capital expenditure has been increased, which will essentially increase the effective capital expenditure. The effective capex will be much higher. Done. So these are the 13 articles that I wanted to discuss with you people from Delhi edition of today's Hindu newspaper. If you have any kind of doubts, issues or concerns, do let me know. Now I'll address your doubts. Aman Singh, will the debt to target of 50% also change with the change in GDP calculation? My dear, the target will not change, but the absolute number, how much they are supposed to reach, will change. I hope you understand. If the bottom, that is the denominator, changes, 50% will remain same. If the denominator changes, the numerator also has to change so that the outcome will remain 50%. But anyways, right, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Once the GDP rebasing is done, the government will give you clarification regarding that. Any other doubts? Apart from Aman Singh, any other doubts? Aman Singh, why need AS when we have RODTEP? My dear, RODTEP, right, understand, will provide remission of the taxes that you have paid in the production. I hope you understand. RODTEP will consider the taxes that you have paid in the production to the local government, to the central government, to the state government. The advance authorization is more to do with the imports that you have done. Both are different, by the way. Both have different objectives. Okay, so that's it from my side in today's session then. See you all. Just before I close, right, just a reminder. Day after tomorrow, that is on the 4th of February, 7 p.m, I'll be taking a special class covering chapter wise. I'll start this covering chapter wise the economic survey. And second one, I've already made a detailed video on the 16th Finance Commission recommendations. Please do watch that, especially if you're writing the upcoming prelims examination. That's it from my side. Take care. Have a great day. And do not worry about the PPT. After the session is over, the PPT will be uploaded in the right drive. Please download it. That's it. Take care. Have a great day.